Using this series of demos, we're going to start to understand some of the features of Mark in a little bit more detail and why we're using Mark rather than Google Docs or Google Slides or Google Drawings. So I already have a bookmark for Mark. Actually, it's from Lucid Press, but if you don't have one already, you should definitely add one. And remember, it's just mark.com, marq.com. And then when you get there, you're going to see a screen that looks like this. To see your existing projects, click here where it says My Projects, and you'll see your Mark Interactive Guide and anything else that you've ever created. Now, we're using the educational free version of mark.com, so we only get 3 projects. So if you ever are unable to create a new one, just delete one that you're not using anymore. Like, you're not going to need this interactive guide anymore, so you can delete it at this point, as long as you've gotten your points for it. If you didn't get your points, if you didn't submit it, obviously you don't want to delete it yet. All right, then to create a new project, click over here where it says New Project, and we're going to choose Blank Project. We'll talk about templates some other time, but right now, Blank Project. And then after a few seconds, your blank project will load. And remember from before, you can collapse the previews of your pages over here. I always do that, especially if I'm just working with one page, because I don't need to see that, and I can see my work a lot better. We're going to give this a new name. We're going to call this Your Last Name, and then Practice. And the only thing we're going to look at here is how you can change your background color. We saw that with Google Docs. You can also do that with the Mark documents. So if you go over here to your context pane, you'll see background. And if you ever don't see that, by the way, if you just click on the background, if you have something else on your document, you can do this, and then you'll see background there. Now, you can choose from these preset colors, but there's a lot more to it than that. You can click on the color wheel here. Unfortunately, this eyedropper tool is not part of the free plan, so we can't use that, but that's a really neat feature for apps that do have that. So once you click on the color wheel, you can choose the color you want, and then you can drag around and choose the exact shade. Or if you know the code for your color, you can just type that in, which is something that I often do. So I'm going to click OK, and now I have my different color. You can also go down here and you can choose gradients. So we've got linear or radial gradients. So if I click on linear, I can drag this and decide where I want that color to start. Okay. And if I click on these little boxes, I can choose a different color. And there we go. Also, if you want to have more than 3 colors, you can click anywhere on this stripe here, and you can choose to add an additional color. So you can really get some interesting designs, and you can decide, you can decide how you want those designs to appear with changing the rotation. You can also type in a specific number. So if for some reason you knew that you wanted it to be 150 degrees, well, there you go. It's 150 degrees. You can do the same thing with radial. You can choose the colors that you want. You can also delete these by right-clicking in them and choosing remove. So if you have too many colors, you don't like the way that looks. And remember, you can bring them back by simply clicking on here and choosing a different color. You can decide where the center is, what the radius is of your radial gradient. And the final way you can change your background is by adding an image. And there's multiple options for how you want to do that. I usually don't use an image unless it's not distracting to the rest of the stuff in my document. And there are a few effects you can add as far as saturation, contrast, and brightness to change your colors. So for example, I have this image that I found. Let me upload this. And it's just of some bubbles. And when I click on it and I insert it, okay, I could definitely use that. I'm going to go in and change the saturation here, make it a little bit less bright, okay, and change the brightness. And that might be a decent background for something. But again, you don't want to use something that's going to be distracting to the viewer. And that's how you change your background. Go ahead and check that out in your own practice document. Give your document a new background.